Hey everyone, Steven here. So I wanted to make a video on one of the DeFi apps that I use really heavily. It's probably one of my most used apps out there, and it's Compound. Um, you might have, many of you, if you're in the DeFi space, might be familiar with it already. But if you're not, I think I hope this video teaches you something about it. And yeah, and it's a way that I use to maximize my yields and also be able to hold on to really valuable like crypto assets like Ethereum and things like that, and be able to yield without giving up ownership of these assets, right? So right now, so this video I'm just gonna go over how I use Compound, some things that some ways you can use Compound to keep like your assets safer, right? There are certain ways you can access Compound in a safer manner. And then also, I'm going to go into this really cool trick that I do to prevent margin calls on Compound. I had gotten a lot of margin calls in the past, so I had to do research into how to prevent that. And yeah, so I'm going to go over what I use to prevent margin calls, and hopefully it'll help you guys out. So the first thing about Compound is just a basic overview. So Compound is basically, it's sort of like, if you're familiar with the centralized versions of it, it's sort of like BlockFi or Nexo, in that it's basically similar to a bank account, but you can deposit in like wrapped Bitcoin, Ethereum, or these other assets, and then borrow usually up to 75% of the value in Ethereum in a different assets. For example, you can borrow it out in DAI, you can borrow out in USD coin, and also a lot of other assets as well. The cool thing about Compound is that first, it is probably one of the most secure DeFi apps out there right now. It's really heavily audited, and the Compound team, one of the things is that Compound doesn't have that many crypto assets, right? And they don't give a ton of yield. Like you can see over here, you can probably get better yields on other platforms like Aave or things like that, or have a wider variety of assets. But the thing they do really well is that they do a lot of security checks on their code, and they have not had any hacks, which is really fortunate. And yeah, and they really take that extra step to make sure things are secure. That doesn't mean that they won't get hacked, right? But it does mean they are taking responsibility to ensure that it's a safe platform. And that is really cool. That's one of the reasons I use them over anything else. I rather just get a little less yield, have a little less variety in assets, but have that extra security, especially in the DeFi space, which is pretty important to have that security. That's basically, so that's one of the benefits of Compound. And one of the first things you can do when you are on Compound, right, is you can connect your wallet. And one thing is that I never use the MetaMask Chrome extension, and I highly recommend most people to never use it as well if you can. I might have used it maybe once or twice in order to cancel Ethereum transaction in like the last 6 months, really. Really, like, if you want to be safer, don't use MetaMask. Really go with Wallet Connect or Coinbase Wallet, and then use a very secure phone. Like, for example, for me, I use iPhones because I know that every app in iPhones are sandbox. So it's really hard for an app to use code that accesses other apps' data or stuff like that without the permissions features and things like that. So I use an iPhone, and then I use either the MetaMask iPhone app or the Coinbase Wallet app for myself. And sometimes the Trust Wallet app as well, but I find there's more functionality in MetaMask or Coinbase Wallet. And that is a really great step. There are a lot of viruses and hacks that actually target the MetaMask Chrome extension. And the Chrome, I've developed a lot of Chrome apps, and you wouldn't believe what people can do on Chrome apps. Like, you can have another Chrome app. Like, for example, I use this app called Clickbait Remover for YouTube. And this app over here can actually access my data on the MetaMask Chrome extension. It takes a couple of steps and hoops the developer needs to jump through, but I can tell you that it's not super hard to access it, right? So whatever your key you put into MetaMask, consider that extremely easily hackable. So don't use the MetaMask Chrome extension. Chrome extensions are not safe. Yeah, and keep it to a minimum. If you want to be extra safe, what I would do is like have a laptop, like just go out and buy a laptop that you use completely separate for DeFi stuff, and also a separate phone as well. And that'll just offer you extra protection. There's a lot of hacks, but for the day-to-day, you probably won't get hacked. Usually hacks target people who hackers know have a lot of funds, like a few $1 million or stuff like that, in their wallets, right? I don't keep that much in a wallet. And so, yeah, but if you want to be really safe when you're using DeFi apps, go with the iPhone app versions and then connect it through Wallet Connect. And then on your MetaMask iPhone app, you can there's a scan QR code button. You just scan this and then you'll be connected to the app. I'm just going to scan it right now on my phone so you can see what it looks like. And yeah, and basically, and then right afterwards, you can, if you want to supply, like for example, supply Ethereum, you just click supply, it'll give you a confirmation button. For example, confirm transaction, and then it'll pop up in the wallet app to click confirm, right? So it's really a lot safer to use an iPhone app. There might be ways to actually hack Wallet Connect, right? Or things like that, but it's so far right now, there hasn't really been any hacks I've heard of on the Wallet Connect side. So it is a little safer on there. And yeah, and that's really how I stay safer on these platforms. There's no way to guarantee 100% safety, but there are ways that you can up your safety like levels and things like that on like prevent hacks and things like that. And yeah, so the next thing I'm going to show you is that how to avoid margin calls on Compound.Finance. And the way I do it is through this app called Defy Saver. So instead of using Compound directly, I used to use Compound directly, but I don't do it anymore because of the very easy ways that you can get margin called, right? Ethereum is a very volatile asset still, so it can go up and down a lot. And especially if you borrow, like I usually borrow pretty close to the max, like 60%, 65%, 70%, and the max is 75% of the value of Ethereum, right? So if Ethereum drops like 20% or 30%, now you're going to get margin called, right? So the app that I use instead of using Compound directly is this app called Defy Saver. And what they do is on Defy Saver, you have this function called Automate that you can enable. And you can basically just click, there's a few screens that pop up, and then you can click Enable Automate. And then create this thing called a smart wallet. And basically, if you put your funds into smart wallet and put it onto Compound, what they'll do is that if it gets close to like the Ethereum value starts dropping and it gets close to the amount where it might get margin called, right? Within 10% of it getting margin called over here. And you can also set this like how much it would need to drop to have it start executing. What it'll do is it'll start taking some of the Ethereum that you have as collateral and start selling them to pay off some of your debt. And then you can set it to how much you want it to pay it off and things like that. And also how much you want Ethereum to drop for it to start paying it off, right? So then it'll slowly reduce the debt levels as Ethereum drops. So the bad thing about that is you're basically selling Ethereum at the lowest point in price, right? So that means you need to sell more Ethereum for the same amount of cash. the other thing is that automation on DeFi Saver, you can also set it to start selling Ethereum when Ethereum prices rise as well. So there's two ways of automation. It's the other one is called a boost. I tried that out. I didn't really like it because Ethereum can rise a lot, and if you just continuously sell it over time, it doesn't really make that much sense if you're just paying off debt, right? You're kind of diluting your Ethereum shares. But it does, so like you could set it to really high level, like, okay, if it 2x's and start paying off some of your debt, which really does make sense. And I think yeah, and it's sort of like a good way of using it. And so, yeah, and so that's basically like the automate feature in DeFi Saver and really prevents the margin calls. And the reason I try to prevent the margin calls is because the margin calls are a little bit special on Compound, where that it's when they margin call you, they margin call it pretty early on. So like around 75% when it drops past close to 75%. So you don't lose a lot of your Ethereum or other asset that you put on, but there is a penalty. So it's about 10% fee or so if they margin call you. So you're losing about 10% of that transaction. So yeah, so preventing margin calls will save you a lot of money in the long run. And yeah, and that's basically how I use these two platforms. If you guys have any questions, feel free to post it in the comments or tweet at me on Twitter. I read every one of the comments and respond to everyone, so happy to help out. And yeah, and if this video was helpful to you, leave a like or subscribe, and thanks.